Hello, it's Joe Glines. In this video, I'm going to show you how to control whether SPSS outputs the variable labels, the value labels, or both if you want them. And so basically there's some syntax. And first, let me show you real quickly. I have a data file here that has, here's my variable names, the labels, right, for each name. And sometimes you want to see, normally, right, you want to have the labels. And let's say I'm going to say, I have a hot string set up here. I use on a hotkey, so output set labels. So this is the show labels data file, which I just realized I need to go. Let me go open that real quick. Come on. So this syntax here, I forget the exact thing about it, but this over is the labels. It's going to tell it to have labels, 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 and then one has to do with your tables, one has to do with your like pivot tables and output tables, and numbers are all labels. And if we look at the where I have it say variables, it'll say variables here, I believe, if I remember right. And actually, let's go ahead and first I'm going to run this. So I'm going to say first I want to use my labels, and now I'm going to call up my describer macro. This is just a macro I have that'll pull up some syntax. Let me get my variable names here, and now I'll just change the title for title just to have it fancy. You know what? Let's get rid of all this stuff first and rerun. Okay. So here you can see these are my labels, right? Because when we looked here, let me grab this whole thing so we can see it on the other screen. These are the labels, what you see here, right? They're sorted from high to low, or sorry, low to high, and that's so when I graph them, they'll be inverted in Excel. Anyway, we have the labels showing up here. But if I change this to output show, no, output show names. Okay, and now let me go open this data file, because this is the syntax you'll have to use. This is also why I put it into a command line, because it was just this. So here's labels. Did I open show names? Oh, labels, labels, labels. Oh, here's names. So this tvars, right? I guess for whatever reason, makes no sense to me, but now watch what happens. I'm going to run this, and it's going to change now my settings to say, hey, every time you do something, show the names of the variables instead of the labels. Now, if I had run frequencies or run something else on any output, it affects any output. And if I run this again, here you can see now, here are the names, right, which you can see right here. So here are the names, and obviously the data stays the same, it's just that what it's outputting. And if we go back here and say, I think it's set output both. No, output set both. Yeah, so show both. Now when I run the same command, my output has both the variable name and the label. It's very rare where I show both, because to me it's just very confusing. However, if you're playing with a data set, sometimes it's nice to, when you're just learning it, to help you remember what the name of the variable is and what the label is, especially if your variable names don't really reflect the variable label. But let me show you an example, like why in the world, why wouldn't you just want the labels, right? Why would you ever want the variable names? One reason why is if you had a big data set and you actually wanted to use your output to write your syntax. So it's a wacky concept, but what if you had a couple hundred of these and you wanted them sorted from lowest to highest in your data set, and you wanted them stored that way, just so you knew which ones, on average were the most. You could come in here. Oop, I missed one. Copy. Now when I come back over here to my syntax, I could say something like match files, keep, put in my variables, and now when let's go to the, oh, actually here, so here's the original order. When I run this, now we look at my data, right, and it has changed the order of the variables to reflect the output, right? They're in this order. So that's one reason. Or like what I do with factor analysis. So let me close off some of these and pull up my let Let me get rid of this, and I'm going to say factor, and again we'll grab these guys. Now this is pretty cool. What I've built into, and I'll show you after I've run it, but it's pretty cool, is sorry, I forgot the order of my variables have changed. So let's go back, and because I changed the order, the to command did not like that. So there, now the order changed. Okay, so ignore this for now, right? Here I can look at this and I can decide if this is the right rotation, and this looks like it's loading pretty well, and if I didn't like it I could come back here and I could try, let's say, quarter max, rerun it, it redoes the thing, right? Basically I keep looking at this and get it to where I want it, and then once I have what I want, now up here, because basically I ran factor analysis twice. I ran it once showing the variable names, and then I ran it again showing the labels. This now has grouped the variables I want to have loaded together, so it's very easy for me to know which variables I want to have, and create a sum variable or an average or whatnot, however I'm going to play with them, right? But it put them together, which is one of the hard things when you're writing your syntax. If you have a couple dozen variables and they're spread throughout your data set in different orders, you got to go hunt and find them down, hunt and pack and find which one's which, right? This puts them all together, so it's really easy to identify these three, right? And just copy them and put them in there. I actually have a macro that combines them all for me, but we'll save that for another day. But this is another reason why sometimes you want to have the variable names outputted. Sometimes the labels I just want to read, but when I actually go to use it to write my syntax, I use the variable names. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of different uses for this, but just understanding that those values can your syntax. And let me show you real quick. So let's say I do change this back to names, and I'm going to run frequencies on all of these. Notice how up here in the header, in the title, it's the variable names. But let's say I go back and I'm going to get rid of all this, and I show the labels. Oh, let's just do both so we can see both. And then I rerun my frequencies. See how it's in each one? Human resources comms, JV restaurant, community relationships, right? It applies to everything in my output. And if I did custom tables, let's see if I can excuse me, do something here real quickly. Categorical, scale. They show up here as well. And there is another one, by the way, that you can tell it if you want the what are those? The output labels on or off. And that's another crazy syntax one that, let me see, show names. Maybe this is the one. Nope. Show value labels. Here we go. So this is the one that you can set to tell it to show the value labels or just the vars. Show values and labels both. I got a gazillion of these things. But anyway, hope that helps you. Bye.